This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so good morning, Parsha Vayeshev. So in our Stone Chumash, it's on page 198, Perek Lamed Zayin, Pasuk Aleph, chapter 37, verse 1. And Yaakov has had quite the turbulent life. Quite the turbulent life. From an early age, he and Esav have not seen necessarily eye to eye, and that continued throughout. Then he received the blessings. We discussed that already at length. He had to run for his life from Esav. He spent 20 years in the house of Lavan, where he was deceived and had to work an additional 7 years. After working 7 years for Rachel and being given Leah as a wife, another 7 years. Then he worked 6 more years after that in order to accumulate his own wealth. And Lavan tried to deceive him left and right. When he left, Lavan comes chasing after him. And then has that whole meeting with Esav. Right? It has been a rocky road. It has been a difficult life. And therefore the pasuk says, Vayeshev Yaakov, be'eretz mugurei aviv. Yaakov, Yeshev, wanted to settle. He thought it was time, Social Security, time to retire, time to take it a little bit easier. But it was be'eretz mugurei aviv, in the land of his father's sojournings. So it doesn't say he settled in the land where his father settled, or he sojourned in the land where his father sojourned. We're using different terms over here. Yaakov settled in the land of his father's sojourning. And based on that change in the wording, Rashi brings from the sages, Vayeshev, Bikesh Yaakov Leishev B'Shalva. Yaakov wanted to sit B'Shalva. Shalva is with serenity, with tranquility, time to take it easy. And Hashem says, it's not enough for the tzaddikim, that which is prepared for them in Olam Haba. They also want to sit peacefully, with tranquility in this world. And then the whole Yosef situation came tumbling down upon him. And we've discussed in the past this idea that this is, and we spent a lot of time on this in our Derech Hashem class when we're studying on Monday nights. This is the Olam HaAsiyah. This is the world of doing. Good morning, Ora. This is the Olam HaHishtadlut. This is the world of efforts, of trying. And therefore, we've compared it to a person who was given 2 hours or 1 hour in Macy's. Macy's is going out of sale. We're going out of business. So you won the grand prize. You have an hour to go into Macy's and pull out of that store anything you want. Whatever you pull out is yours. Imagine a person has the hour and he goes in there and the clock is ticking and he's throwing things into the carts and rolling them out of the store. And then he comes to the bedding section. And he says, ooh, Simmons Beauty Rest. I've heard that's really comfortable. Oh, don't mind if I do. And he goes lying down there. This is great. Oh, let me grab one of those pillows. Right? Oh, this is really comfortable. He gets out of the bed. Oh, a lazy boy. I love lazy boys. Gets in the lazy boy, leans all the way back. Right? And then the hour is up. You say, crazy. You had 1 hour. Why are you spending time on the Simmons Beauty Rest and the lazy boy, whatever, with the lumbar over there? Perfect. But that's Olam Hazeh. Olam Hazeh is that 1 hour that we have to grab by giving, to do good, to connect, to help others, to connect to Hashem. And therefore, Vayeshev Yaakov. Yaakov wanted to sit with tranquility at the end of his life. And Hashem said, that's not what this world is about. I remember hearing this story about one of the great 20th century rabbis, Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky. He lived in Monsey, New York. When he was in his 80s, he visited Russia, the Soviet Union at the time, and he encountered a childhood, I believe it was a cousin of his, I'm not sure. They had studied together in the yeshiva. Rav Yaakov had with him a Tanakh, a book of scripture, Torah, Nevi'im, Ketuvim, Torah, prophet, scripture. And this a friend, whatever it was, a relative friend, who had learned with him in yeshiva, but had spent the subsequent 60 years, 65 years under communist rule, he asked him, what is that? He had forgotten, he did not know what a Tanakh was. And Rav Yaakov was so struck by that in his early 80s, when he came back to the States, he founded an organization that when the Russian immigrants, because the Iron Curtain was starting to rise then, that when the Russian immigrants come in, there'll be an organization to take in all the children into school and to teach them about the Judaism that had been plundered from them and their parents and grandparents over those 65 years. That's at age 80-something that he founded that organization. And that is the idea of this teaching of Chazal, that we must always, always be doing. And we're going to see now that Yosef, the whole issue of Yosef is going to come crashing down upon him. And what I want to focus on today is, A, who's to blame for the sale of Yosef, and then we'll actually see the psukim itself and see it's not very clear, but the second question is, who actually sold Yosef? And we all jump and say, oh, the brothers sold Yosef. And we read on Yom Kippur, we read on Tisha B'Av about the 10 martyrs who were persecuted and tortured to death by the Roman authorities over different time periods, and we're taught that was a communal responsibility, punishment that was on Klal Yisrael, on all of the Jewish people, because of the sale of Yosef. So we have to see who and how and what led to it. So let's begin over here. We are told, we'll just go in English. Verse 2, Jacob at the age of 17 years was a shepherd with his brothers by the flock, but he was a youth with the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah. So we see right away that he's not hanging out so much with his older brothers who were the sons of Leah, but he's being shunned somewhat, or has taken an affinity towards the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah. Those were the maid servants who had married Yaakov, and also, right, and they were their sons. They were tribes. Dan, Naphtali, and Gad and Asher were the 4 tribes, the two that were born from Bilhah and Zilpah. Vayaveh Yosef et dibatam ra'a el avihem. Joseph would bring evil reports about them to their father. Yosef would bring evil reports about his brothers to their father. So, if you're a child and you see your siblings doing something wrong, we would say the responsible thing to do is to let your parents know. to let some trusted adult who's not going to overreact, but who will deal with the situation properly, it would seem that makes sense. That is what a person should do. When I was teaching in high school, very often after class, sometime after class, someone would say, Rabbi Ciner, can I speak to you? I say, of course. And they say, can I tell you something in confidence? And you give me your word that you will not tell anybody else. And my response would always be, I give you my word that I will not share with anyone else unless I feel that you or someone else are in danger. And then for your benefit or for the benefit of someone else, I will have to share it because I care about you and I care about other people. So, there are times that we need to share things. Yet, dibah is a term that is somewhat derogatory. It's almost like a slander that he was bringing. And our sages explain that Yosef would misconstrue certain events and then present it to their father. So this is clearly going to be building up a certain animosity that the brothers have towards Yosef and a certain mistrust, because again, he is misconstruing events, things that were done, things that were said. Number 3, verse 3, Yisroel havet Yosef mikol banav. Yisroel loved Yosef more than all of his sons. Kiven zikunim hulo. Simply he was born towards his old age, or he was very, very sharp. Rashi brings an alternative explanation. Whatever he had learned, he was sharing it with Yosef. V'asalo ketonet pasim. And he made for him a ketonet pasim, a fine woolen or silk tunic. Right? There are some explanations that say that it was multicolored, but the contemporary world focuses on Joseph and his multicolored I don't know, all these different plays and movies that came out. Right? It wasn't multicolored. There are some that say yes, some that say not. But most importantly, this was a show of favoritism. This was a way of elevating Yosef above the other brothers. Now, why would Yaakov be understandably elevating Yosef above the other brothers? Understandably, why would he be doing that?
He brought him information about what was going on.
Oh, because he was the spy. He was
He was a spy.
007. That I would say more than that. Yes, Kathy, what do you want to say?
I would say maybe he's the firstborn of his favorite wife, and there's
Yeah,
a connection
right,
there.
right. And favorite wife almost sounds, problematic, right? But maybe instead of favorite wife, the wife for whom he worked 14 years. He worked 7 years in order to marry Rachel and was given Leah, waited 7 days and then married Rachel and then worked an additional 7 years. So Rachel was the wife, was the main wife. And this is his firstborn son from his main wife. I know in our, monogamous, non-polygamous world, main wife sounds very, very jarring. But we have to go back there for a moment. And people had multiple wives. And this was the main wife. So we could understand wanting to have Yosef assume a certain position of authority. And Yosef also felt that we'll soon see the prophetic dreams that he had, that yes, this is the role that I am meant to play. The brothers saw that his father loved him more than all the brothers, and they despised him. V'lo yachlu dabro l'shalom, and they could not speak peacefully to him. They could not stomach Yosef. Yes, or you wanted to say something before I cut you off?
Oh, no. I wrote down to ask you later, but I'll ask now. The kutonet pasim, the garment for Yosef, what did the brothers wear if he was elevated by the kutonet pasim?
So this was a special cloak. They wore whatever garments everybody wore. This was an additional cloak, almost like a more regal cloak, we'll say, that was given to Yosef. It wasn't that they, that he had a shirt and they were all bare-chested, right? They wore the regular cloaks that people wore, and all of a sudden Yosef had this,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah,
I think back in the 1970s, one of these fur lines, with one of those jobs.
yeah, I see now how this can look to the brothers as one above,
Yeah,
one up.
yeah, and it was.
Yeah.
And then to add fuel to the fire, Vayachalom Yosef Chalom. Yosef dreamt a dream. We're on page 200 now, Perek Lamed Zayin Pasuk Hey. Vayagei le'echav, and he told his brothers, Vayosifu otzno, and they hated him even more. Now it doesn't even say what the dream was. So this puzzle seems to be saying he dreamt a dream, and he told them, I had a dream. He told them, I had a great dream. He didn't even tell them what the dream was, but they hated him more because they said, oh no, we know where this is going, and that's exactly where it went. He said to them, listen to the dream that I dreamt. We were there, we were gathering binding these sheaves in the middle of the field, and wouldn't you know, my sheaves stood up, your sheaves surrounded mine, and all of your sheaves bowed down to me. The brothers interpreted the dream, and they said, Vayomel Achav, will you be the king over us? Will you be the ruler over us? And they hated him even more because of his dreams and his words. The words can refer to the fact that he would bring reports to the father, or the words could also be that he got them to interpret the dream exactly the way they thought he wanted us to interpret it. He had another dream, and he told it to his brothers. And he said, behold, I dreamt another dream, and the sun and the moon and 11 stars were all bowing down, you guessed it, to me. The brothers did not interpret it. They learned that lesson the first time. We don't hear a word from them. And he told it again now to his father and to his brothers. And his father rebuked him, scolded him, and said, what is this dream that you dreamt? Will I and your mother and your brothers go and bow down to you? So Yaakov openly rebukes him. The brothers were very jealous. Va'aviv shamar tadavar. According to Rashi, but his father kept the matter in mind. According to Rashi, he was waiting for it to happen. So this is the stage that has been set. That's going to lead to the sale that we'll soon read through. Who is at fault? Tell me, who is at fault here? Or who bears responsibility? Kathy, I couldn't hear you.
I think it's Jacob's fault.
Okay.
He's the parent. You can't do that with your kids. You just can't do that. And even just playing it like that shows the kids, which wife is the preferred, and then the kids, and his whole house is a disaster. There's no Beit Shalom here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yaakov, as he wanted that Yosef should be in a leadership position, but the way he's doing it is having a toxic effect on the household. He tries, you see over here in this last verse, he's trying to dial it back somewhat. He rebukes Yosef. What will I and your mother, your brothers go bowing down to you? Almost like I've created a monster over here. Look where this has gone to. But Yaakov, in showing this favoritism, certainly created this kina, this jealousy, this animosity in the house. So Yaakov certainly bears some responsibility. Now, there's an interesting teaching. We said before that he loved Yosef. He was ben Zekunim Hulo, because he was his ben Zekunim, either child of his old age, or Zaken could also refer to wisdom, Zekana, that which one acquires, Zaken Zekana. And there's a teaching that he shared with him, the teachings that he had from the house of Shem and Aver, the teaching that he had on his way to the house of Lavan, because Yaakov had this premonition, perhaps prophecy, perhaps premonition, that Yosef, like he, would have to deal with a very foreign environment. So that was a teaching that Yosef would need, but the brothers would not need. The brothers would be together throughout. Yosef, as we'll soon see, is going to be in a very, very different, hostile environment. So there were reasons why he taught him these different things, and reasons why he elevated him, but the result was toxic. So Yaakov certainly bears some of the responsibility. Who else bears some responsibility?
The mothers? Where were the mothers?
Interesting. The mothers. We don't hear about the mothers at all.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure what the mothers could or should have done. Right? The mothers we don't hear about. And I would imagine, we look at a marriage as it's a team, equal partners, right? And there are times that Natalie will tell me, the way you're dealing with this child is not working so well. And I'll say to her, the way you're dealing with that child is not working, oh yeah, but the way, but right, we will try to help one another in terms of best dealing with situations. I would imagine in a family situation, in a polygamous marriage, there, it's not these evens. There's a very clear hierarchy that's there. So I don't know how much the mothers could have done. And we also don't hear a word about the mothers. But I think Yosef is also certainly partly responsible, right? He's a couple of things that he did. He was the one who would rat out the brothers, but it wasn't even things that were actually legitimate concerns that the father needed to know about. Yosef was misconstruing events and reporting through his view of what happened, which was not necessarily accurate. So I'm sorry?
Misconstruing, well, every one of us in any situation is biased over what
Yes.
we are seeing. So was there a bad intent in Joseph relaying the stories? I don't know.
That's a good point. Ora. And I don't know if there was a bad intent, but before reporting to the father authority, the parental authority, he should have investigated further. questioned the brothers, found out more of what was going on. And he was remiss. And actually, the three areas that he claimed that they were, the three areas where he claimed that they were deficient, those were areas that he was either shown they were not deficient, or he himself was tested in that respect, right? He told the father that they would call that the brothers, the sons of Leah, would call the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah avadim, servants, right? That they were degrading them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, there was a hierarchy in the family which they were establishing, which was okay. What happened to Yosef? He was sold as an Eved. So there were these constant haunting reminders of this boomerang. That which he had said about them would come back and would haunt him and would challenge him. Right? He said that they were being promiscuous, and right, in that they were talking to other women, and that was a stringency that Yosef had taken upon himself, which they had not necessarily taken upon themselves. And Yosef's was certainly tested, we'll see later on, by the wife of Potiphar when she tried to seduce him. So the things that he accused them of kept coming back in his life and saying, oh yeah, that's what you say about others? Let's see how you deal with situations when they come your way. So Yosef, and then the dreams also. The dreams, their commentators explain that Yosef, by telling the brothers the dreams, what he wanted to let them show them was, this is not me, this is the position that I'm supposed to have. So this is not me, this is the position that I'm supposed to have. And all the sheaves bowing down to him, that's in fact what ended up happening, right? When Yosef is in Egypt, the viceroy, and he's in charge of all the sheaves. So all the 11 sheaves, the brothers, come bowing down to Yosef, bowing down to Joseph. So what he was trying to let them know is, this is a role that the heavens have set for me. They took it, no. These are your delusions. This is what you dream about, right? Because that's what you hope for. So he certainly read the situation incorrectly with the brothers. And that which he had hoped would quell their animosity ended up throwing oil into the fire. And it just raised their level. Yes, Ora?
How old is Joseph when all of this animosity, dreaming is happening?
Well, we're going to see what's going to happen in a minute. Let's turn
No,
the page.
how old is Joseph?
Yes, I think we're going to have it. Just 1 second.
Doesn't it say he was 17?
He was 17 years old. I'm trying to find the pasuk right now.
That's when he's sold, I think. He's 17.
No, that's when he got sold.
Yeah.
So this is all leading up to that. We know he was 17 when he was sold.
Okay, so let's assume that all of this back and forth telltelling and animosity was building up in his early teens, or maybe even earlier. I thought maybe he was just a innocent child telling, what he saw, but I can't claim that when he's in his teens. The other point I wanted to ask is, you said that Jacob had a premonition about Joseph. Is that an interpretation, or it is said that he knew?
Interpretation. That's not explicit. That's not explicit.
Okay.
Let's continue on page 202, Perek Lamed Zayin, Pasuk Yudchet. The brothers are out shepherding. The father sends Yosef to go check on the brothers. Vayiru oto merachok. Pasuk Yudchet 18, page 202. Lamed Zayin Yudchet. They saw him from a distance. And 4, they came close to him. Vayinaklu oto lamito. They conspired to kill him. Vayomru ish el achiv. And one man said to the other, Hine balachalamot lezeba. Behold, here comes that dreamer. Vata, and now, plan number 1. Plan A. L'chu v'nahargehu. Let us kill him. V'nashlichehu ba'achad borot. We'll throw him into one of these pits. V'amarnu, and we'll say, Chayara achalatu. He was consumed by a wild beast. V'nir'eh ma yu chalomotav. Let's see what will be of his dreams. Plan number 1 is to kill him. Now, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but the Sephorno explains very beautifully, right? How do we understand? We've all had some spats with our siblings, right? We might have said, "I'm going to kill you," but we never actually planned to kill any of our siblings. I'm assuming that's the case. I know that's the case with me. I've had some spats. Might have said, "I'm going to kill you," but never actually planned to kill anybody. That was not on the drawing board. So Sephorno explains, and I don't want to spend too much time on this point, but he explains the brothers said this person is trying to kill us in this world and the next world. This person is trying to get Father to curse us, to exclude us, to banish us. Look at the family history. Avram had a Yitzchak and a Yishmael. Yishmael was out, and Yitzchak's the man. Yitzchak had 2 sons, Yaakov and Esav. Esav is out. Yaakov's the man. Now our father has 12 sons. And here's this Yosef. And what's he doing? He's bringing all these reports to our father about us. What's he trying to do? He's trying to make sure that we're out and he's the man. Therefore, they judged him to be a rodef. A rodef is someone who's trying to kill you. He's trying to kill us. If not in this world, in the next world. He's trying to exclude us from the whole lineage. He wants us to be the next generation, Yishmael, Esav, and the 10 of us. That's what he wants. And therefore, the halacha is, if someone comes to kill you, you have all the right to kill him first, to prevent that from happening. Plan A, kill him. Throw him into one of the pits. Pasuk Chaf Aleph. Plan B. Vayishma Reuven. Reuven heard this. Vayatzileu miyadam. And he saved him from their hands. Vayom, and he said, Lo nakenu nafesh. Let us not have the blood on our hands. Let us not be the ones who will kill him. Rather, page 204, Reuven said to them, Al tishpichu dam, don't spill that blood. Hashlichoto laborazeh, throw him into the pit alive. Viyad al tishlichu bo, let our hands not be against him. What was Reuven actually thinking, the pasuk says? L'man hatzilo tomi adam. Reuven's plan was to come back and save Yosef from their hands, L'hashivo el aviv, and bring him back to the father. But even though Reuven was the oldest, he was not a true leader. The true leader doesn't go around the end over there and try to do it. The true leader leads. And he would say, no, this is what we should do. But he was not that leader. But he was trying to save Yosef. He introduces plan B. We should not kill him. We'll throw him alive into the pit. Let him die over there. He's telling them, really, his plan was to double back and save him. So plan B is what is plan B is what is in place when Yosef arrives. Pasuk Chav Gimel, and it was when Yosef came to the brothers. They pulled off his ketonet, which is his regular cloak. You would ask, what are the regular cloak? And the ketonet pasim, and that very fancy cloak that was upon him. And the commentators point out, well, you have to take off the outer garment first. Why does it say they took off his regular shirt and then this cloak on top? And they explain, you see, it was like a frenzy. If you're tearing it off, then what do? You're turning things inside out. And you pull, right? You're grabbing and pulling it off. Right? So they're pulling off all of these garments. They took him. They threw him into this pit. And the pit was empty. There was no water. They followed plan B, Ruvain's plan.
Rabbi,
Yes.
regarding that, so you say your comment about a true leader, that just made me think to Aaron and the Cheta Egel and the masses there.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so Aaron gets a pass and Ruvain in saving a life, then he's not a true leader. I mean, clearly Aaron was trying to deal with the masses and possibly,
Aaron also took a very, very meek approach. Aaron also took a meek approach. And Aaron was also castigated because of that. Yes. Yes, I think that is a parallel. Now let's hear this carefully. Vayeshvu le'achol lechem. They sat down now to eat some bread. Now, this is the Sephorno brings this, that it wasn't this rage passion, it was a decision that actually subscribed as a beit din. They sat as a court and they judged that he is liable. And therefore, what do? They sat down to eat some bread. Vayisu einehem. They lifted their eyes, vayiru, and they saw. V'hinei, behold, orchat Ishmaelim ba'amid Gilad. There was a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilad, and their camels were carrying all of these fragrant spices in order to bring it down to Egypt. Here comes plan C. Vayomer Yehuda lachav. Yehuda says to his brothers, Ma betza, what do we stand to gain by killing our brother and covering his blood? Let us go and sell him to the Ishmaelim. Let our hands not be against him. He is our brother. He is our flesh. The brothers listen to Yehuda. Yehuda is from whom royalty comes, kingdom comes, leadership comes. The brothers agreed to plan C. We will sell him to who? To the Ishmaelim. Now, Pasuk Chavchet is very strange because we have these hanging pronouns and they. But who are they? Let's read it carefully. V'yavru anashim midyanim, socharim. There passed by men, Midianites, merchants, vayimshechu vayalu, and they pulled and they lifted Yosef from the bar, from the pit. Vayimkuru et Yosef lishmaelim, and they sold Yosef to the Ishmaelites for 20 kesef. And Yosef was brought down to Mitzrayim. We have a hanging pronoun over here. They pulled, they lifted Yosef from the pit and sold him to the Ishmaelim. Who are they? So Rashi learns, classic Rashi learns, it was the brothers who did it. So why are you telling me about the Midyanim? Right? Pasuk 27 said, they said, let's go sell him to the Ishmaelim. The brothers agreed. For some reason, we stick in that Midianite people passed by. Right? Those first four words are very strange. Why is that there? And then, according to Rashi, the brothers pulled Joseph out from the pit and sold him, and they brought him down to Egypt. Why mention the Midyanim, the Midianites at all, according to Rashi? Oh, Rashi says this was another caravan to let you know he got sold many times. Okay, let's continue according to Rashi, and then we'll double back. Vayeshev Reuven el Habor. Reuven returned to the pit. Now, 1 second. They were all there eating, and then they sold him to the Ishmaelim. And Reuven comes back to the pit, and behold, Yosef's not there. According to Rashi, what happened to Reuven? We just said, according to Rashi, they sat down to eat. They decided to sell to the Ishmaelim. They sell him to the Ishmaelim. And then Reuven comes back. Where was he? And, oh no, Yosef's gone. What's going to be? Right? What happened over here? Rashi needs to explain that. Rashi says he was not there for the sale. Why not? Oh, they had a rotation of one brother going back every day to help father. And that was Reuven's day. So after he threw him into the pit, planning to come back, he went home to serve father. The brothers sat down to eat. The brothers sold him to Ishmaelim. Reuven comes back a day later, and right, it seems all very, very strange. Now,
I have a simpler explanation that Reuven went to relieve himself around the roundabout,
okay,
a little bit away, and meantime this takes place. We know it's the next day.
okay, but if that's the case, he probably will not be gone all that long that he won't know that the brothers went to the pit, pulled him out. There had to be some negotiations that took place, sold him, right? For him to be completely blindsided by this, it seems that he was far enough away for enough of a period of time they had no clue what was going on. Let's go a little bit further.
Rabbi?
Yes.
Then something is completely inconsistent, because if one brother was returning each day, why did Yaakov have to even send Yosef to see how the brothers do?
Good point. Good point. Excellent point, Janet. If one brother is going back, right, on this Torah Nut, on this round robin system, then he's getting almost daily reports about how the brothers are doing. Excellent point, Janet. That is another issue that we have with the way Rashi is learning over here. Kathy.
Okay, what if they throw him in this pit and now they're off eating, but it's a little bit of a distance because they don't want to hear him screaming and yelling when they're eating and having their discussion. So they may see the Ishmaelites off in the distance, but what if the Midianites are closer on the road that they don't see because maybe there's some hills or whatever, and they come and they take him out. So then when they
You're on
do
to the Rashbam. You're on to the Rashbams. Good. Okay? And the Rashbam is very often more tightly aligned. The Rashbam was Rashi's grandson, by the way, was more tightly aligned to the Pshat than Rashi. Now, before we go back and see the other way of reading, jump to page 252. Perek Memhei. This is when the brothers are confronting Yosef at the end, and Yosef is not able to control himself. And he says, Pasuk Dalid, Memhei Dalid, 45, Pasuk 4. And Joseph said to his brothers, Geshu Nailai, come close to me. And he said, I am Yosef, your brother, Asher Machartem Oti Mitzrayma, that you sold me down to Egypt. Maybe that is what pushed Rashi to learn it. That is Yosef says, you sold me to Egypt. Maybe that's what forced Rashi to learn the way that he does, even though you're running into issues of why mention the Midyanim, why mention the Midianites at all, and where was Reuven? He went back home, And as Janet said, but if one brother's going back home every day, why do we need to find out? Maybe that's what pushed Rashi to learn the way he did. But let's go back to the Psukim and learn it the way the Rashbam learns it, which is very, very tight. Back to page 204, verse 25. They sat down to eat bread. And as Kathy said, they probably don't want to sit down to eat bread with Yosef crying, "Get me out of here! Get me out of here!" Right? That's no way to enjoy a meal, right? Those of us who try to eat meals with our children being young in the middle and they're having one of their beautiful moments. That's no way to enjoy a meal. So they went to a distance and they lifted their eyes and they saw in the distance, they lifted their eyes, they saw in the distance a caravan of Ishmaelites coming, carrying those spices. 26, Yehuda says, why should we kill him and cover our blood? What's the gain? 27, let's sell him to the Ishmaelim. You see over there, the Ishmaelim, let's sell him to them. V'yishmu echav, the brothers heard. While they're looking over there towards the Ishmaelim, what happened? Vayavru 28, anashim midyanim socharim. These Midianite merchants passed by, vayimshechu, and they pulled. That hanging pronoun, who should that be most logically referring to? The ones we just mentioned. And the Midianites pulled Yosef from the pit. And they sold Yosef. And they brought Joseph to Mitzrayim. Now the brothers come back to the pit because they're hoping to sell him. Reuven comes back and Ein Yosef Babor. My gosh, he's not here. He tears his garments. He returns to his brothers and he says, Hayeled eineno, the kid's not there. Vani anani va, I'm the oldest. Father's going to look at me and say, what happened? What can I do? What will I say? They took his garment that they had pulled off earlier. They slaughtered a goat. They dipped it into the blood. They had that sent to their father, Lamed Bet. And they said, Zot matzanu, this we found. Recognize this. Is this the ketonet of your son or not? It's not as terrible a lie, according to Rashbam, as it was according to Rashi. They really don't know what happened with him. They don't know. They came back to the pit to sell him and he's gone. They needed to create some sort of a reason. So they say, we found the coat, blah, blah, blah. But they really did not know what happened. That's how Rashbam learns it. The brothers never sold Yosef. So why does Yosef then, on page 252, when he finally reveals his identity to the brothers, why does he say, I am Yosef, your brother, that you sold, Asher machartem oti Mitzrayma, that you sold me down to Egypt? If they didn't sell him down to Egypt?
He could have heard them saying, we're going to sell him to the Egyptians. So his thought is this, but they also set the stage for this to happen.
Yeah, because if they're far away, not hearing his shouts, he's probably not hearing their discussion. But you set the stage for this, right? There's a concept that for certain things, you could be patur midine adam, v'chayav b'dine shamayim. When it comes to a court here, the court can't obligate you. But on the heavenly ledger, chayav. You're liable. They certainly set all these events in motion. And therefore, Yosef can say to them, you sold me down to Egypt. You're the ones who created this. You're the ones who sold me down. You created this whole situation. Yes, Ora.
Yeah, and he was also very intuitive as having all those dreams. And so he knew the intention behind what the brothers were contemplating, even if they didn't speak it out.
Yes, but he didn't say that you intended to send. I said you sold me to Mitzrayim, which means, according to Rashbam, that you are partially, you are to a degree responsible, as if you had pulled the trigger yourselves, right? If a person hires a hitman, he's liable for murder. He didn't pull the trigger. He was in a different state when it happened. But he, according to the way the law works here, liable for murder. That's what Yosef is saying to them. And then Rabbi David Foreman points out something very interesting. Plan A was, let's kill him. Plan B was, throw him in the pit, not kill him. Plan C is, take him out of the pit and sell him. All right, so plan A, kill him. Plan B, throw him in the pit, let him die. Plan C, he doesn't need to die, but we'll sell him into slavery. There was no, so what keeps happening? Their rage is subsiding, and they're becoming more and more reasonable, we'll say, less violent, right? If there would have been time, and there would have been a plan D, if we follow the trajectory, plan D probably would have been, let's really give it to him. Maybe even give him a little bit of a beating, but certainly a tongue lashing about the way he's been behaving and about the things he's been telling Father about us. And let's send him back home. The whole difference was time. It's interesting. The very first Mishnah in Pirkei Avot, in Ethics of the Fathers, the very first Mishnah, the first Mishnah actually tells us about the lineage. Where does the Torah Sheval Peh come from? Moshe, Sinai to Yoshua to the Zakanim, etc., etc. Then when it comes to the actual teachings, number one teaching is Havu Mitunim Badin. Be deliberate in judgment. Right? And a court that rules that a person is deserving of capital punishment, it can't be done that day. They've got to sleep on it. They've got to go to sleep on it. And only the next day can that capital punishment be carried out if that remains their decision. And I think this teaches us, even though it says be deliberate in judgment, right? Seemingly speaking to judges, we're all judges. We're constantly judging ourselves, judging others, judging God. We are all judging. And we see mitunim bedin, be deliberate, be slow, give yourself some time. The only thing that changed from plan A to B to C was time. And when there's time, we can settle down, we can see things from a different perspective, and see things in a much more level-headed manner. So or 1 second, I'm with you. So who was responsible for Yosef's sale? Yaakov held some responsibility. Yosef had some responsibility, but ultimately the ones who pulled the trigger, according to Rashi, literally, according to the Rashbam, not literally, but set the stage for it, was the brothers. So we also have to add the Midianites and the Ishmaelites to the mix. But certainly all three carried some responsibility. And that's very important, right? To be able to recognize, right, when things go wrong and it was really someone else who did it, to be able to recognize the role that we might have played in it, and to accept a certain degree of responsibility, and to resolve not to do the things that can lead to that in the future. And when we are riled up and ready to act, I once posted a thing on a cute little picture of for my lunch and learn about anger management, right? And it said, if you're feeling really angry, slowly count to 10. And then at 10, punch him in the face. He's not expecting it, right? But that's not really the lesson over here, right? But to slow ourselves down, and that way we come to a much better, clearer path of action. Yes, Ora.
So I have two thoughts here. One about, I totally agree that the initiation of the idea of getting rid of Joseph is really critical and bears responsibility. We say, Sof ma'aseh b'machshava tchila. So the thought about it kind of directs the action. So that's one thing. The other is you sort of put down Reuven's leadership in the sense that he wasn't in the face of the brothers calling for opposite action. But in reality, when someone has a position and you oppose it, you do not achieve anything except for more controversy. But if you go slow, roundabout, you can eventually turn the thing around.
Okay, that is true, and I think it really depends on the ability that sometimes you can take it on head first and head it off, and other times one cannot. A lot depends on who you are and how the relationship you have, the way you are viewed, and it might have been that for Reuven, this was the only way for him to do it. Possibly. But Yehuda was able to shift the direction of the ship completely, right? Whereas, directly to the brothers, what he wanted to do, he presented to them, and he was able to lead them. There's a lot of talk today about politicians. Always a lot of talk about politicians, right? But they say the politics of old was that you would choose someone because you trusted that person, and then he would lead. Actually, the Gemara says that in the generation before the Mashiach, the leader is like a kelev, is like a dog. Meaning what? How does a dog, when a dog's walking ahead of you, how does he walk? Keeps turning back to see which way you're going. So it appears that he's leading, that he's ahead, but he's not really ahead, right? He's being driven from behind. Politics today are driven completely from behind. What do the people say? What's the polls? What do the polls indicate? What do people want? And that's what I'm doing. Now, had Abe Lincoln taken a poll when he was going to emancipate the slaves, the poll probably would not have been in favor of emancipation, especially since the slaves could not vote. So had he taken a poll, had he taken a vote, right? What do the voters want? The voters probably would have wanted to retain slavery. But he was a leader. And he felt, while I was chosen to lead, I've got to lead according to what I see as being the right path forward. And, that's a true leader. A leader is one who's able to go against the consensus when necessary, and eventually bring that consensus around to his or her position. So Reuven, he wasn't the leader, right? They're different personalities. Reuven was simply not that forceful leader, and we see that Reuven did not become the kingship comes from Yehuda. Yehuda is the leader. Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, it's the fourth son that actually is the leader. There are certain leadership qualities that a person has and develops. And all I'm saying, I'm not castigating Reuven, but I think it's clear that that was not his role. And he did the best he could. He did the best he could with what he had, which is really all we can ever ask of anybody. But I was saying before, Ori, he was not that forceful leader. And therefore he needed to bow over there. Okay, my friends, I think some good food for thought over here. Okay, everybody. Have a Shavua Tov. There will not be lunch and learn this Thursday because of Thanksgiving. I think people are busy with their families. So we will resume next week. All right, we'll see if we'll do Parsha. Maybe we'll do something on Hanukkah next week. We'll TBD. I'll have to be determined. Okay, good seeing everybody. Thanks to those who open your cameras. It's nice to be able to see people. Makes it easier than the black boxes. So others also, if you feel comfortable opening your cameras, please do. It makes it a little bit more
Personal.
and I don't feel like I'm talking into this tunnel. Okay.
Thank
Be well,
you,
everybody. Have a Shavua Tov. Shavua Tov.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank
And
you
a
very
wonderful
much.
Thanksgiving. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Be well, everybody.